Celtics off-season overhaul cost them too much defensively. Following the franchise's most successful season under Brad Stevens, the Boston Celtics made history by overhauling the roster. 4 players remain from last year's 53-win team, which, according to the Elias Sports Bureau, makes Boston the first squad in league history to pile up the most wins in its conference and return the following season with less than 5 pieces from the roster that accomplished it. Danny Ainge's alterations were made to challenge the Cleveland Cavaliers, the team that has governed the Eastern Conference over the past 3 seasons and eliminated Boston from the playoffs in 2 of them. Instead, it may have weakened the Celtics too much defensively. 4 of the team's 6 best defenders, as defined by ESPN's Real Plus Minus, Jae Crowder, Amir Johnson, Olynyk, and Tyler Zeller, are gone. Each played significant minutes for Boston a season ago and their departures will be sorely felt. Crowder, who now plays for Cleveland, and Johnson finished in the top 65 in DRPM and accounted for the team's best on-court net ratings. All save for Olynyk ranked between the 75th and 100th percentiles in points allowed per possession, according to data provided by Synergy Sports. When each of the 4 players sat, opponents scored at rates higher than Boston's season average. With Crowder and Johnson on the floor together, Boston allowed 102.7 points per 100 possessions, a figure that, if maintained over the entire season, would vault the Celtics from 6th in the Eastern Conference in defensive rating to 1st. Boston's defense also clamped down on opponents from beyond the arc last season, allowing 0.971 points per possession on 3-point attempts, the second-best mark in the league. Opponents shot a below-average 34.2% on corner three-pointers, the 3rd most valuable shots in the game behind free throws and shots from the restricted area. Much of that was due to Crowder and Bradley's defense. Crowder led all players last season, minimum 200 defensive possessions, in points allowed per 3-point attempt, beating out LeBron James, Defensive Player of the Year Draymond Green and first-team All-Defensive selection Patrick Beverley for the top spot. Isaiah Thomas, one of the worst defenders in the league, caused some of Boston's issues defensively. His replacement, Kyrie Irving, is not much better, ranking 57th, compared to 63rd for Thomas, among point guards the past 2 seasons in defensive Real Plus Minus. That brings us to the 3-point line, which could go a long way in deciding Boston's fate this season. There's never been more of a premium placed on efficiency and production from beyond the arc, and, in turn, more of a premium placed on defending the shot. Boston was an above-average team last season, and has been since Stevens arrived, at chasing teams away from the 3-point line, allowing 26.93 pointers per game, 6th best in the Eastern Conference. Thomas may have been a sieve on the defensive side, but he was actually better than Irving when it came to spot-up defense, mostly from beyond the arc. Thomas ranked in the 67th percentile last season, according to data provided by Synergy Sports, while Irving ranked in the 17th. Last year was arguably Irving's best defensive season and he still ranked 111th in points allowed per possession on 3-point attempts, 1.24. So Irving is about as much of a defensive upgrade as someone who ranks in the bottom 5th of the league by most defensive metrics can be. What happens when Thomas, Bradley and Crowder are replaced with Irving, Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown? Hayward benefited from an elite defensive ecosystem constructed by Utah Jazz coach Quinn Snyder, and Brown turns just 21 next week. It's tough to imagine a scenario in which Boston improves defensively this season, especially when it comes to mitigating the 3-point production of opponents. In total, there are too many unknowns with this group. The 4 remaining players from last year's team, Brown, Al Horford, Terry Rozier, Marcus Smart, played just 14 minutes together in the postseason. 538 projects a 47-35 record and an 86% likelihood of reaching the postseason, which puts Boston in line for the 2nd or 3rd seed in the East come playoff time. That's a regression of 8 wins and 1 or 2 spots in seeding, which seems about right considering what Boston chose to part ways with this offseason in search of a greater offensive ceiling. Cleveland is the barometer that the Eastern Conference measures itself by, and Boston has little chance of dethroning the Cavaliers with this defense. More NBA preview. Brewer, in a changing NBA, Wizards' old-school centers are fighting to earn respect. Russell Westbrook's Thunder was a one-man band. Now he's conducting an all-star ensemble. Is Kyrie Irving just a sidekick? Is DeMarcus Cousins not a winner? 5 players with labels to shed. The top 100 players for the 2017-18 season. Future top 100 NBA players, 10 potential breakout candidates not on this year's list. NBA season predictions, projecting MVP, Rookie of the Year and more. Projecting all 6 divisions and the playoffs. How the NBA fell backward into a darn near perfect opening week of games. With Chris Paul joining James Harden, Rockets believe they've closed the gap on Warriors. Top 100 NBA players, which guys rose and fell the furthest from last year. The Clippers will miss the playoffs and 9 other bold predictions for the 2017